Hey, friends! Well, here it is, Black History Month. So I thought I'd review a movie appropriate to the occasion. And as luck would have it, quite by accident, I recently tripped across this little gem. So this time on Barkey Reviews, we're talking about Five on the Black Hand Side from 1973. Our story goes like this. Barber John Henry Brooks is kinda uptight. So uptight, in fact, he makes his wife keep a strict schedule while he's working at the barbershop. And while he isn't abusive, he definitely bosses her around and takes her for granted. He doesn't understand his 3 kids either. One son, Gideon, is living on the rooftop of their apartment building as a way to protest his father. He's a revolutionary who wants to see black people rise up against whitey, and he's all in on taking down the man. But for right now, he's just standing up to his dad. The eldest son is dating white women and doesn't like his given name, Booker T. Washington Brooks, while his daughter, the youngest, is about to get married in a distinctly African ceremony. Now, Mr. Brooks doesn't get that at all. His daughter tells him it's a way to tell the world they're black, but Mr. Brooks thinks that seems pretty obvious. He sees himself as American, not African. Well, things come to a head when Mrs. Brooks has simply had enough of Mr. Brooks's overbearing ways and decides she wants to be emancipated, issuing Mr. Brooks with a list of demands. Meanwhile, she moves up on the rooftop too. She also gets a makeover courtesy of her friends. They take the starch out of Mr. Brooks by protesting at his barbershop, embarrassing the straight-laced Mr. Brooks by storming into a male sanctum where women are generally not allowed. Will Mr. Brooks see the error of his ways? Can John Henry take the chain off his brain? And will these ladies earn their black belt? In our cast, dig this. Leonard Jackson plays Mr. Brooks. He was in Car Wash, The Color Purple, and tons of other things. He played the mayor on The Wire. He was in Gremlins, the TV version of Peyton Place, and The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat. Clarice Taylor plays Mrs. Brooks. She was Anna Huxtable on The Cosby Show. Virginia Capers plays a friend of Mrs. Brooks. She was Grandma Hattie Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She was in a lot of other stuff, too. Big Jake, Howard the Duck, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Toy, Support Your Local Gunfighter, just tons of things. D'Urville Martin is here as the elder brother. He was in Dolomite, Black Caesar, Hell Up in Harlem, Rosemary's Baby, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Carl Franklin plays the fiancé Marvin. He did a lot of TV work. He was Dr. Walters on The Fantastic Journey and Captain Crane on the A-Team. He turned director and worked with Denzel Washington in Out of Time and Devil in a Blue Dress. Comedian Godfrey Cambridge appears briefly and basically plays himself. He was in a ton of things too. Cotton Comes to Harlem, Beware the Blob, the sequel to the original Blob, Watermelon Man, Friday Foster, Splendor in the Grass. He died way too young of a heart attack at the age of 43. Arguably, the most familiar name in the cast is Janet Dubois. You probably know her best from Good Times, where she played next-door neighbor Willona. She also wrote and sang the theme song to The Jeffersons, Moving On Up. She was in a bunch of movies and shows over her career. She was also the first black actress to appear in a recurring role on a soap opera way back in 1951. Here she plays a neighbor on the side of Mrs. Brooks named Stormy Monday. Five on the Black Hand Side was directed by Oscar Williams, who didn't have many credits. He did, however, write the scripts for 2 blaxploitation classics, Truck Turner and Black Belt Jones. Finally, one of the producers on this project was Brock Peters, a real legend. As an actor, he starred in Soylent Green and To Kill a Mockingbird, and many, many other things. but you may remember him best as Admiral Cartwright in Star Trek IV and Star Trek VI, and his appearances as Sisko's dad on Deep Space Nine. He was also the voice of Darth Vader in the super awesome radio adaptation of the Star Wars trilogy. You know, the real one, where Luke Skywalker was a hero. And during the wedding, if you spot this scene, where people dance down between a line of other dancers, you may think what I was thinking. Oh, looks like Soul Train. Turns out, yes, these were the Soul Train dancers. The title refers to this. Normally, you're used to the gimme some skin thing, where you slap palms together, right? Well, 5 on the black hand side is like that, only you turn your hand over. Never heard of that before myself, but I guess it was a thing. And speaking of things I wasn't sure of, the daughter's wedding ceremony might be an actual thing. I mean, it could have been at the time, with the rituals and the African words and all of that. Or the filmmakers could have just made all of that up. I don't know, honestly, but anyway, it works in the context of the film, so there you go. The scenes in Mr. Brooks's barbershop also feel very real and lived in, so to speak. The barbershop was a classic fixture of black neighborhoods, where people would come and go, and the older men would sit around and have wide-ranging conversations. We see that brilliantly realized in this film, and they could have just made a whole movie just set in that barbershop, following events throughout the course of a typical day. We'd have to wait until 2002 to see something like that in Barbershop, a movie I went to go see at the theater when it came out, and I really liked it. This was sort of meant to be a change of pace from the typical black movies of the day, the blaxploitation film. 5 on the black hand side was fun and upbeat, with no real violence or crime in the story, which focuses on the family dynamics of an uptight dad who doesn't understand his kids or changing times. So, very relatable. There's still the obligatory karate practice, though. 5 on the black hand side was based on author Charlie L. Russell's stage play, which debuted in 1969, and starred Clarice Taylor as the wife, a role she reprises here. Some of the dialogue in 5 on the black hand side has that stage play feel to it. It's not a deal breaker at all, but you do kind of notice it. Another plus, the movie was shot all on location. If you look through the barbershop windows, we see people and cars and whatnot going by, all live. The rooms, apartments, and rooftops and all of that are real, shot on location, and it gives the movie a grounded reality. And the picture has a nice sense of humor. It might not be a knee slapper, but it has a gentle, subtle comedy to it that just fits. It's very amiable. And don't forget the trailer to this picture. That was the only extra on the Blu-ray I got. I love when they used to make trailers like this. Basically, just one of the cast talking to you about the movie, as opposed to a bunch of clips that give everything away. In the trailer, the film is billed like this. You've been coffee-tized, blackularized, and superflied. But now you're going to be glorified, unified, and filled with pride when you see 5 on the black hand side. It's a real clean scene with a lot of laughter in between. Well, it may not be out of sight, but it is solid, and I did like it. Now, fair point, this movie will not be for everyone, and the ending, well, that was a bit pat, I thought. But overall, I enjoyed this one, and I think you will too. It's different, it shows the family's dynamics in a believable, albeit comedic way. There's a good cast with some familiar faces, and the movie has a catchy theme song. The whole thing's an interesting time capsule. So I'm giving 5 on the black hand side. 2.5 paws up. This one is kind of lesser known, so go ahead and treat yourself and give it a watch. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.